Welcome to the Employment Hour. We're glad you're here. I'm your host, Paul Cotillo, and I'm joined today with my guest host, Mr. Jeff Williams. We're here also with our guest tonight, Mr. Tony Ramos. Tony, how are you this evening?
Great, thank you, and thank you for having me here.
Very good. We have a show here that is of great interest to your employers and you employees by providing all kinds of information about issues relating to employment. So we're glad you're here, and we're going to get right into it here right now. Tony, as I understand it, you have a kind of a consulting firm that provides background checks. The main one is for employers, right, on their new employees, background checks on them. Am I correct?
That is correct. That's correct. We operate on a national basis. In fact, we do some international work as well. We do pre-employment for screening and also consulting for companies looking to implement that kind of a program, advising them on the systems that are out there, the various screens, and what's the most cost-effective programs they can invest in.
I see. Now, what makes your particular company different than a lot of the other screening companies?
Well, most screening companies, they'll promote themselves to be a screening company. One thing they all have in common, very few, if any, actually pull their own records. They outsource that to researchers. We are researchers. We're set up that way. We started out as court researchers. We're experts at that.
So they pull their records from other sources and that kind of thing.
That's correct.
You actually call the direct police departments or direct areas?
No, we send people to the courthouses. We have we have courthouses staffed with our representatives who go into the courthouses. These are people who are trained, who've been with us for years. They go into the courthouses and they pull the records for employers. Mm-hmm. And we provide this service also to other screening companies. So it's a system that we've had in place on a national basis.
Okay, I wanted to back up a little bit. And what kind of education do you have that prepared you for this type of thing?
A lot of it's been actual on-the-job training, but my background is electrical engineering from the DeVry. After that, I took a position with Underwriters Laboratory, analyzing alarm systems, breaking into safes, into alarm system, motion detectors, analyzing bulletproof, bullet-resistant material, testing that out as well. That got me interested in the security industry. I took a job at that point with a company called Saxon Paint Store, which I later became Director of Security for the operation. Following that, became Director of Security for all Carson Perry Scott stores. Did that for about 17 years, and I was recruited then by a company called U.S. Investigation Services, which is the largest screening company in the U.S., as Vice President of Sales for the operation. And that's where I really became familiar with the industry itself. I thought I knew the industry, hadn't been a security director for many years, having conducted background checks for many years. Nothing prepared me for what I then learned as a member of U.S. Investigations, to really know what goes behind the scenes, what differentiates a good screening company versus a bad screening company. So it was an eye-opener.
What kind of things should be in a background check? What kind of things are available for a background check?
Well, there's a lot of complications out there for companies, because when you look to do a background check on someone, there isn't any standard. Everybody has a different definition of what a background check consists of. The easiest program to implement would be a Social Security trace. That'll provide you with a name with that number so you can compare the two to make sure that you are doing a background on the right individual. The other thing it'll provide you with up to 10 years of residential history. So now you know where that applicant's lived at. You can compare that against the application to make sure. In addition, it'll provide you with any alias ever associated with that number. So now you have quite a bit of information. We then suggest to do a county search wherever the person's lived at. You have to understand the criminal court system, first of all. If a crime's going to be committed, chances are it's going to be tried in a county court. That's the home where all the records, that's the source where all the records are kept. So if you're looking to have a cost-effective program, that's your best source. That information in many states is up, some of the information is uploaded to the statewide records. But that's a database. Unfortunately, between a county and the state, there could be a miscommunication as much as 30%. So although companies may offer statewide searches, you're lacking information. The other part is by doing a county search, you're provided as an employer not only conviction information, but also arrest information. So you have more information in which to make your decision on.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, did you have some questions?
Well, what do you feel are some of the biggest misconceptions that corporations have about doing background checks? They think some things are true that may not be, and
the biggest problem that corporations have is understanding the different screens that are out there. Again, when you go on the internet and you look for a background screening company, you're faced with over 230,000 different choices. Where do you go? Who do you select? And a screening company versus a researching company, how do you differentiate the two? One of the things that is a key to establishing the quality of a background check or a screening company is to find out first what their hit rate is. And by that, I mean if a company, find out how many screens a company does a year. Of the number that they do a year, how many come back with a criminal record? That shows the efficiency that company would have on conducting the search.
And so the higher the hit record, the better the company.
That is correct. It's not so much the more you pay, the better it is, or the less you pay. It's the hit rate that actually determines the quality of the search itself.
Okay, now I'm an employer, and I'm wondering, gee, is there a law that governs the way these things are used?
No, in fact, well, it is. There is. There's a couple laws. There's a statewide law, and it varies from state to state. However, there's one that covers most of it, and that's the federal law. It's under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which was issued by the Federal Trade Commission. And basically what that entails or provides a company is immunity from lawsuits, as long as you follow the program as stipulated in the FCRA. And basically all it says is, as an employer, have a separate release form that the applicant has to sign. It cannot be part of the application. It has to be a separate release form indicating that you're going to conduct a background check. Once that's signed, have an outside firm do the background check, and you have to do a county court. The Federal Trade Commission does not recognize any kind of databases or any database beyond 90 days old. So the most effective way is to get the most updated information. That's at the county courthouse. Once that's completed, if there is derogatory information, before you take any negative action against that applicant, you have to provide that information to the applicant. The applicant has an opportunity at that point to challenge that information. By doing that, you give yourself protection, and you're protecting the rights of the applicant as well.
I see. So it's both sides. What other rights do the applicants have?
Well, the applicant has the right to challenge that information and to provide supporting information that's not, in fact, it's not them. It could have been a twin brother. It could have been that they were a victim of identity theft, which, as you know, it's a big, growing problem here in the United States.
Yes.
Unfortunately, a lot of the records, especially in these databases, are name match only. So if you are a victim of identity theft and your information is used in the commission of a crime, you're arrested under your full name as well as the alias or that name that you stole. So now all that information gets loaded into these databases. So now here I am, I'm the applicant who was a victim of identity theft. Now I'm going to be a victim twice over.
Right.
Because I'm going to be denied employment, I'm going to be denied a loan, I'm going to be denied a mortgage because my name appears in a negative database.
Okay, we have to take a little bit of break here. This is very fascinating stuff, and we're going to have more information to employers and employees about what your rights are and what happens with the background check. Come back to us in just a minute. Thank you very much. Hello, and welcome back to the Employment Hour. I'm your host, Paul Cotillo, joined with Jeff Williams, my co-host, and we're here again with Tony Ramos, and we're talking about his consulting business providing background checks to businesses. What should employers think to pay for a background check?
A good price is around $20 per person. It depends how extensive they want, but that's a good round number, between $20 to $30. It all depends on the position itself and how much exposure they have. I think companies really have to understand what's at risk here. When you think about the investments company make in alarm systems, the fire wires and protection on their IT system and so forth, and it's all to protect them against the outside threat. But yet, that person fills out the application, and yesterday I was an outside threat, and today I'm a valued employee, and I'm given the keys to the entire corporation. So there's a lot of exposure there, and there's a lot at risk for employers.
You're saying that employers do have to provide a safe workplace, and that's expanded these days.
Absolutely. Since 1998, workplace violence itself has increased by 750%. OSHA is now taking an active role in looking at employers and establishing what a safe workplace is. It's no longer a trip hazard anymore. It's also, what kind of employees are you hiring? What are you exposing other employees to? Many of these workplace violence issues could have been avoided had a decent background check been done. A lot of that is subject to discovery. Courts are ruling in favor of employers or applicants who were victim by crimes, because years ago it was difficult for employees to conduct these background checks. Now it's so simple. An average background screen should take less than 30 hours on a national basis. So it doesn't take any length of time, and for around $20, $25 you can get it done effectively and safely, protecting everybody's rights, but most important is providing a safe environment for your employees as well as your customers.
Okay, I'm an employee, I'm a potential employee. If I fill it out and put down my background, my criminal background, am I ever going to get hired?
If a company is ethical, I'll put it that way. I've personally, before I do that, I make sure that it's not a job-related issue. You look at the time between the event itself and the time the person's applying for the job, what's happened in between. So you take all that into account. On the other side, your chances are probably great that even if you are hired, you will be separated for falsifying your application. So you're better off as an applicant to be honest up front, because that's where you want to start your program. You're starting a relationship with that employer at that point. You want to start it off on the right foot.
What if people neglect doing a background check? What penalty would they have?
Negligent hiring suits are becoming more and more common now in throughout the U.S. On the average, jury decisions are around $3.5 million against the employers. Keep in mind, you have a jury of your peers who are looking at, who are sympathetic, and they're holding companies, corporations accountable. They've seen Enron, they've seen all these other companies who go astray, and they're holding these companies accountable, and they're paying the price for not conducting a due diligence up front.
You're saying also that there are other types of people that would use a background check, like say a person hiring a babysitter or somebody going for a mortgage or renting to somebody?
Absolutely. In this day and age, you can't trust anyone from appearance. You shouldn't. You don't know what background these people have. So you want to make sure that you're providing a safe haven for yourself, for your family, for your children. So you want to do that background check. It's very affordable. Those are slightly higher because you don't have the volume. You do maybe one check, and those checks usually include driving record as well as criminal record, because you want to see if the person may have an alcohol problem, if they've been arrested for DUIs.
Mm-hmm. So what type of people would do a background check? What kinds of for somebody you're going to rent to somebody, if you're a landlord, that would be one. Also, a babysitter. What other kinds of?
Again, whether it be a caregiver, if you're having somebody in your home for any purpose, whether it be cleaning your home, you want to make sure the person's clear of records. At least start off on the right foot. If they become dishonest after the fact, well, that's how much you can do about that. But start off on the right foot. Right now, employee theft or internal theft costs companies over $40 billion a year, and it's growing at a rate of 15% a year.
So it makes a lot of sense to pay $20, $30 for a background check and not incur the hit of embezzlement from your company.
Absolutely, and also according to the Small Business Association, 30% of the business failures do so because of internal theft. 30%. That's a big number that could be avoided. So if you're looking to be in business for a period of time, that's one way you can kind of safeguard your profits. And if you are in business, you're worried about the outside element and the threat. But it's so hard to also worry about the outside and the inside, knowing that the inside is going to cost you that much more. They have greater access. They have more opportunity. The outside, you're very limited on what access they have to your services, to your
Jeff,
merchandise.
I think you had some
When
questions
you're
also.
when you're considering a hiring of a senior executive, are there some additional levels of background checking that are typically used?
Absolutely. You can do. You can check all the credentials, colleges and education, all the licensing that the individual may have. But you may also want to do a civil search. You want to see any type of litigation this person's been involved with. Again, you want to get a good picture of this individual. This person may be representing your company. They're going to be your representative of that company. You want to make sure you have all the information that could be discovered, that is public information. You want to have it at your disposal before anybody else does.
Well, let me ask a question from the perspective of the potential employee. How well protected is their medical information?
Medical is very protected because of HIPAA regulations, and that should be. And really, that shouldn't be come into play unless, obviously, it's a certain type of job that requires a certain amount of physical ability. But short of that, that shouldn't come into play.
As I remember during our conversation before the show tonight, you told me that there was an astounding percentage of resumes that are incorrect or just downright wrong.
According to most surveys, and the latest one is from the Society for Human Resource Management, 53% of the job applications contain false information. Now, you couple that with the identity theft, you have no way of knowing as an employer who you're going to hire. And most employers, keep in mind, and that's on the surface, behind the scenes, most employers work for companies who, because of competition, have had to cut back. So you don't have the interviewing skills anymore.
Right.
You don't have the time to interview these individuals. And once you do hire them, you don't have the level of supervision you once had. So now these people have greater access, less supervision. The temptation is much greater. So the opportunity is much greater than it's ever been before, and it's only going to get worse. So unless we protect ourselves up front, we're going to have to pay dearly later on to try to eliminate that person.
Okay. I'm an employer, a potential one. We just have a little bit of time, so I wanted to get this in before we finish. I'm an employer. I have a juvenile record that happened when I was a teenager. Okay. Does that figure into the background check? Or
No. Juvenile records are sealed and should be sealed. They're not subject to discovery, and it shouldn't be used by employers. One of the things that I do advocate is to use only information that is public access, and information that you're not, that you wouldn't have a difficulty having it appear in court. You want to make sure that you maintain the individual's rights as well as your own. So you're protected.
The age cutoff for juvenile records is
18 for the most part.
18. Is that just in our state here, or is that?
In most states. In most states, it varies between 17 and 18, but.
Okay, well, Tony Ramos, we're just delighted to have you here this evening, and it's been
very informative, I think, both for employers and employees about the whole thing of a background check, which is figuring in a lot more unemployment these days.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for watching. Once again, check our website, www.employmenthour.com. We'll have things about, that Tony has said here on this program on our website, and also lots more information for employers and employees.